On this episode, we kick off summer road tripping season, answer a question from a listener that's also been on our minds, and wrap up with a few Tesla updates.
Let's go! Dipping in my Tesla. 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 Dipping in my Tesla.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 5 of Supercharged Podcast. Ryan, Angela, David, back with you again. Lot happening in the EV world, a lot going on, and we wanted to get a little more current events oriented. So we're going to start it off by bringing in this is the Supercharged Podcast Chief Royal Analyst, Angela Vinton. Go ahead.
So I know you guys were so excited to watch the royal wedding. Ryan and I were up at 4 a.m. watching it. Not intentionally. We just both happened to roll over and we were both awake at 4 a.m. So we turned it on. Anyway, cool news about that. David, I don't know if you were up watching it. I know you're all into the pomp and circumstance of that. But is that the royal couple drove away in a electric vehicle. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It was a 1968 Jaguar that had recently been converted to an electric form. Yes.
Look at how modern they are.
It's pretty sharp looking too, yeah.
It is.
Was it British racing green?
It was blue.
No.
It was blue.
I mean, if I were going to select the color, that's what I would have selected.
So this was the other thing, is when I first saw a picture of it, Meghan was sitting in the right-hand seat and Harry was sitting on the left. And I, at first, was trying to figure out either it was an American setup of the vehicle or Meghan was driving after their reception. But it looked like Harry was the one driving. He just happened to be on the left side, so.
Okay. So it was left-hand drive?
It was.
Yes. Okay. It was that was a little America in a British car.
Yep.
With British royalty.
Yep.
Little did we know we imposed our driving standards on them.
But I know you were all very excited about that, so thought I would share.
That was cool. I didn't know that little fact. I was most excited that the Queen wore a lime green dress to the wedding.
Cool.
I was like,
pretty sharp. Yeah.
She's a fashionista.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, going on from there, something else that Ryan and I just drove back. We just got back about an hour ago from a short little mini road trip over to the coast this weekend, and kind of got me to thinking a little bit about the fact that we're coming into our summer season, which is a common season for road trips, and kind of got me thinking about road trip planning. And I know David has a road trip coming up with his partner soon, and something that Ryan and I have talked a bit about is trip planning for actually a Leaf, if we were to actually end up buying a Leaf up here and trying to drive it down to California, which I think he has vetoed. But it just got me thinking a little bit about what's available out there for actually doing some of that trip planning. I mean, I know those of us that have Teslas, they have in both in-car and now actually on their website as well, that you can put in your destination and your current location, and it'll come up with a suggested route with superchargers along the way. But there's certainly places that you can't go using the supercharger network all the time. It's getting pretty darn close. Incidentally, Williston, North Dakota, where my family is from, is one of the few locations you cannot go.
Yeah.
So
North Dakota is about the only state you can't currently get on the
I saw a recent map though of proposed superchargers, and it had like this nice little line going through the middle of North Dakota.
That's been there for about 3 years.
I'm full aware, but you know what?
Supercharger desert.
Yes. So, it got me looking at some other websites and apps that were out to try to look for route planning, not only using superchargers, but using other electric car chargers as well. And I came across with a whole list of different websites or apps. Some of them are, primarily only for Teslas. A couple of them have some Leaf information in there, and some ways that you can change up the specifics of your vehicle and the specifics of your route. But I don't know, David, you had a nice list put together as well. I don't know if you want to discuss some of those.
Sure. Well, actually, I wanted to say we know that the electric vehicles will have arrived if you just jump in your car and go on a road trip, right? 'Cause,
Right.
I was thinking, it's like, in an ideal world, I say that, but at the same time, I know that the last gas car road trip I took in an SUV, I still did a road trip plan just because it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
How far can you drive? Where do you stop? Anyway, I can mention two of my favorites, and then you can mention the additional ones you found. As it turns out, these are pretty Tesla specific. Not one of them is exclusively Tesla. It's called a Better Route Planner, and then EV Trip Planner. It started as all Tesla, but they grown a little bit in the direction of I think it was the Leaf is built in there now. So that's the EV Trip Planner. So those are the kind of two that say to me that I found them really helpful. I've used both pretty extensively, but you came up with a bunch more as well.
I did. So EV Trip Planner was probably the top one that I came up with as far as usability. I don't know if that's even a word. Just because it has a lot of options that you can put in there that I thought were pretty cool. You can put in what you plan to keep the temperature you plan to keep your car at, what the outside wind is, what kind of buffer you want. We may go into that a little bit more here in a minute. So I think of the ones that I looked at, that was probably the most useful to me. A couple of the other ones that I found, one's called Charge Hub. That one seems to be more of an app-based sort of thing. I did not download the app, I'll be honest, so I didn't really explore that one a whole lot. I tried to use it just off the website on my iPad and was having a hard time getting an actual route planned. I know based off of their kind of what they have as their descriptor on the website is that you can plan some custom trips and find chargers at your ideal stops, but I was having a hard time actually getting the tabs to come up for me to be able to do that, so I didn't really get to try that one out too much. The other one I found was EV Tripping, which actually seemed like a pretty good one as well. It does only do Teslas, but it also had in there some things that you can change, like your cabin temperature, your maximum speed, if you want to avoid toll roads or ferries or things like that, you can put all that information in and you can customize that to your specific model of Tesla. So that one actually seemed like it would be pretty helpful. And then the last one that I found, just kind of in my short little research on this, was something called EV Journey, which that one it has it formulates a route for you, although it doesn't specifically say go this far, stop at this charger. It basically has your route, and then it comes up with a bunch of little pinpoints of where all the different chargers are and all the different kinds of chargers. So it's a little bit like totally drawing a blank on the PlugShare.
Oh, PlugShare.
PlugShare a little bit. Just that it has all these multiple ones, and you can click on each of them and whatnot. But it's just a generic. It doesn't specifically have for your vehicle or for your particular model or anything like that. So it's kind of up to you, to decide if you were to use that app or that website. Up to you to decide, how far to go and when to charge and that kind of thing. So those are the one that was kind of my list. And you had
the PlugShare. It has as an app, it has some basic capabilities too. I actually haven't used them. I just see that there is a directions button. I'll point out a couple things that I really like about the Tesla specific ones. I mentioned like a Better Route Planner and EV Trip Planner. You were also on that, on the EV Trip Planner train, if you will. Both of them feature a little pop-down menu, allows you to pick your model of Tesla. That's really helpful because that way the size of your battery and also your wheel size, which can affect efficiency enough that it should be in the model of how much energy you're going to use. That's really helpful. I'm going to point out a couple of things that I found really helpful about being honest, if you will.
Yeah.
One of them is the speed multiplier. Like how many of you speed that are listening right now on this podcast? A little bit, right? And the answer is probably
never. Yeah. I never do.
For the record,
People that like to buy fancy electric sports cars. So I mean,
Probably. Yeah. So it's good to like be honest about that number and say like, you express it as a percentage of how much you go over the speed limit. So that's really helpful. And you already mentioned wind speed, really helpful. And I just want to emphasize outside temperature. You should, if you are an EV novice, if you're a Tesla novice, please don't attempt a road trip in winter without using one of these websites.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredibly important about being honest about what, especially for winter, what the temperature is. Cabin heating is a sizable energy use. So I just want to, but buffer charge. I think this is like the interesting thing that in these apps or these web-based apps, you get to pick how much charge you want to arrive at the superchargers as you stop.
Yeah.
These are really cool apps. They do say this is the supercharger you should stop at. This is how long you're going to charge at it. This is how many minutes that's going to take. And then it will be built off of what's your comfort factor. And so I think I'd love to hear, like, what do you guys think? Like, what's the percentage of your remaining battery that you want to show up to a supercharger with? What are you comfortable with?
I mean, I'm kind of a wuss, so I err a little on the side of caution. I probably would say, 10 to 12% is probably my comfort zone.
Which is somewhere in the neighborhood, in our car, a little over 20 miles. Yeah, 15, 20 miles
range.
probably. And, I guess maybe a point too to if there's listeners there that are novice EV people that maybe don't have an EV, and, range anxiety is obviously a big thing that goes away with time of owning an EV. You get used to it, The in-car program in the Tesla that if you go on a road trip will tell you to supercharge as you go along. It might not take all the factors into account and doesn't have as many customizable features as a lot of the software, that you guys are pointing out. And you don't even know how much they're using. I have noticed in the winter, it doesn't seem to take all that into account. It seems like that's something the software should do, and maybe it does it to some extent.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really tell you what it's doing. So I would like to see that kind of added features.
It's a great call out that there is an app in your Tesla.
Right.
Not an app. It's the built-in capability of the
built-in
nav
navigation system. Right.
Yeah, and it's pretty good in my limited use of it. But I think if you care about like really fine detail, I think these are the ways to go.
I will say we had the car when we only had the car for maybe 4 or 5 months. We took a trip here from Portland down to San Francisco to do the factory tour down in Tesla in Fremont. And we literally got in the car, told it we wanted to go to the factory, and that was the extent of our planning, to do that. And
That's cool.
Worked out great.
Full disclosure on that, though, we were traveling from Oregon to California, which both happened to be
Quite
populated as far as supercharger networks. So
yeah,
we got
fairly well covered as a route.
On that, yeah.
I'm comfortable with about 10%, which it's going to be around 30 miles of range in the.
I look at
Model
it as
3.
a reserve. When we fly when we fly an airplane, we have to have a 45-minute reserve. Legally, our company rule at the company I work for is an hour reserve. Obviously 20 minutes isn't an hour, but it's a little different situation in a car too than being airborne. So a good reserve is maybe 20 miles. So if you're driving a 8-year-old Leaf, you probably need to stop and charge, once every 10, 15 minutes, and then. That's why I don't want to drive a 2011 Leaf to Los Angeles.
Down there. It's like, what would you use that reserve for? I think, generally near superchargers, Tesla's done a pretty good job of if, everything falls apart technology-wise at that supercharger, they've partnered and or already know that there's kind of J1772 plugs or Tesla destination chargers in a short distance away. You're not going to like charging at those speeds, but it will get you charged
Get
up.
you there.
Yeah. Just the buffer charge, I think, is really useful information. One more thing that I just want to call out, a unique one I think that a better route planner does particularly well. And that is something that you, as a user, can change the reference consumption. No. You guys have told me about taking a road trip with, you have a roof rack on your Model S. And, you had some different experiences on energy efficiency. So what were those?
So, we've driven our S over to Bend from here quite quite a few times now.
Yeah.
But this winter we decided to go over for a ski trip, and we put roof racks on with the skis on the top, and significantly cut down on our.
To be fair, my
range,
skis are
so-
actually 2 snowboards. They're really like the
They're
biggest
really
pair
ridiculous.
of skis anyone could ever buy.
They are, but still, I mean, it's still something to factor in that that was just the two of us. What if we'd had
That
some
was
friends
just the
that
two
went
of
with
us,
us,
and there
or
was
family, or
and it was
something. that
winter, so
It was
that takes into
winter.
account.
the roads weren't terribly bad, and it wasn't terribly cold. But
Right, but yeah, I mean, it was
yeah.
way below.
we
what
pulled
we
into
expected.
the Bend supercharger with 8 miles.
It was 7 miles.
7 miles.
And
buffer.
when we left, we fully charged at a supercharger on the way. That theoretically, we shouldn't even need the supercharger to get there. But about 40 minutes into the trip, or 40 miles into the trip, I should say, we stopped at supercharger just to have an extra charge. And I think leaving there, it said we were going to have like 50 or 60 miles when we hit Bend, and we had 7.
Yeah.
Your buffer was eaten into quite a lot there.
So it is certainly something to think
that-
about. A lot of people traveling, especially with families, I feel like I see a fair amount of
Roof boxes.
S's with the boxes on the top, or I've even seen a few X's with camp trailers behind them. And
That's
so
that's
that's
a
going
whole
to be
other
a
story,
significant, yeah, exactly. But just factoring those things in, and you said that
So the Better Route Planner
Right.
has what's called reference consumption. It's how many watt hours per mile you use at 65 miles per hour on level ground. So recommendation is if you're using a roof box, other stuff attached, or you're towing if you've got a Model X, you should go out on the highway, level 65 miles per hour, find that new reference consumption with all
Yeah.
of that new aerodynamics.
Right.
And then, because your built-in Tesla navigation doesn't account for that.
it doesn't, right?
Not at all.
So a better route planner is a pretty easy way to go ahead and scale your energy use to your situation.
Just make sure you do that before
again,
you
to
leave on
them-
your trip.
Yes.
That seems to be a software fix they could give you. I really think there's a lot of things they can do software-wise in the updates that would be real helpful. Like when we were on that drive, that was the only time I think I've ever had range anxiety, really, seriously, in the car.
Your first one, you mean, to the Tesla factory?
No,
Oh, no, the one
with the
going
skis.
to Bend
With
this
the
winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were going, and about, I don't know, 100 miles out, we started realizing, well, like this, what it's calculating, is we're using way more than what it's predicting. And it's still saying it's going to get there comfortably, but I've realized, well, it's using 30% more than it typically does. So you think at that point, it could just put a pop-up on the screen like, hey, we're detecting like way abnormal usage. Is this going to be typical for the rest of this drive? Like that could just be a pop-up, and it could just adjust its usage to that. That seems like something the software could totally do.
That'd be a nice improvement. Yeah.
We'll have to tweet at Elon at that.
Yeah. And I like how you design, the way you're designing it is a little bit like intelligence, right? It's
Yeah.
like, hey, we noticed this, and that way for the users who aren't, their first inclination isn't to think, oh yeah, I need to adjust my energy consumption.
Right.
The car can make the suggestion.
I think a lot about this, it's a lot like the flight planning we do, in flying airplanes and at the airlines too. I mean, we have this paperwork ahead of time, and we take all of this. I mean, there's crazy amount of things that go into the planning for the different weights and the way the plane's sitting, the runway, how long it is, the temperature, the wind. I mean, so we have a 40-page printout every flight. This is all the data it's using, and we enter that into the software, into the computer. But with the car, it seems it could do that stuff pretty much manually and just kind of check in with you. Hey, we're detecting this. Is this right? Yeah, blah, 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 Or you could go in somehow and tell it a little these things. Until then, you can kind of figure it out your own way and take a couple extra steps and use these programs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to the comparison. It'd be great if one day we don't need to do this level of planning because there's just so many superchargers.
This actually brings me to a new segment I want to do real quickly. I can just throw it in, work it in right here.
Okay.
And I'm going to have a little introduction to it.
Ooh, okay, here we go.
Elon's Twitter claim of the week.
Oh my god.
It's good.
So in response to a gentleman, I also want to address the gentleman in a second, but the gentleman was just asking about a supercharger coming into Woodland Hills, California. And he said, Elon said, yeah, there are thousands of superchargers locations going through permitting construction, including that area. We'll publish an updated map in the next few days. That was 4 days ago. There's no updated map.
Elon time. It's
Elon
going to be in about a month.
Right. But thousands of superchargers, and we're talking about doubling the network. I do want to point out, I looked up why we were here. The gentleman, I don't want to use his name because I don't want to say bad things about him here. His original tweet says, I just picked up my new P100D. That's a $140,000 car, right? Give or take, whatever features he has. And he wants a supercharger in Woodland Hills. I will say there's about 3 superchargers, each within 20 miles of Woodland Hills. You just have to drive 20 miles. So I feel like if you buy a $140,000 car,
Charge at home.
you should probably just pay to charge at home a little bit,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
put a charger in your apartment building. Maybe it's an apartment building.
Yeah.
So put in, or drive 20 miles maybe if you really want to
Yeah.
charge for free. But that's probably not the full point of the supercharger network there. But that's all I have there.
Yep. Well, I have one more thought on road trip, and then I hand it back to your remaining thoughts. Ultimately, with all of this endorsement of, hey, I love these apps, and a better route planner and EV trip planner for me are among the best for that in your Tesla. It still doesn't serve my purpose because I'm about to take, it was like 13, 14 day road trip. So I end up with just a generic road trip website. And I think it does a very good job of organizing that multi-day situation. It actually has some built-in electric capabilities. Surprisingly, it supports, you can say I'm driving an electric car and it will support charging, but it doesn't really understand energy use over elevations, things like that. So I don't use much of that. But I really now use EV Trip Planner and a Better Route Planner for analyzing the difficult days. The ones that are like, I'm straying from the supercharger network pretty far. So I'm stretching it to its limits, or I'm legitimately using an RV park plug. And so I've got 2 of those situations. I'm kind of stretching, driving through Death Valley National Park. Is definitely going to be a stretch of the car's range. And the other one was trying to get to Monument Valley in Utah without going too far out of the way to a supercharger is really hard, which means basically I use an RV park plug for a little comfort.
Right.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, the site, A Better Route, is that what you said it's called?
Oh, a Better Route Planner?
Yeah, A Better Route Planner.
Yeah.
Does that do destination chargers at all, or only superchargers?
You can also set destination chargers. They don't put them on the map. You would just indicate that this address is a charger.
And that can be difficult because a lot of destination chargers are only for hotel guests.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, like, is there a way that you can select that? Because I know when we travel, a lot of times we do stay at hotels that have destination chargers, and so I feel like that's an important thing to be able to factor into your route planning, because if you can charge overnight.
Yeah, and I have been doing that.
From being able to.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if I had that in there.
I'll do the plug for the website I like most for the general road trip planning. It's called myscenicdrives.com. So there's a little plug from myscenicdrives.com. It's become my favorite. Beautiful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, are you guys on your road trip mostly staying at hotels, or are you going to do any camping or?
Mostly hotels.
Yeah.
And several of them have charging.
Cool.
I mean,
Right.
it's pretty. It's starting to become fairly easy to find them. So I'm putting my money where my, where my needs are.
Right. Exactly. Well, the reason I ask is I recently found out about, and you guys maybe are familiar with this, but it's a company and they make mattresses for the back of your car.
Yeah, car camping.
Yeah, Dream Case. We looked them up. I thought it was a cool idea, but they come with about an $800 price tag, which seemed a little high. But they're custom made for your Tesla Model S or
I've
Model
seen
X. I don't think they have one for a
YouTube
3.
video.
I'm sure it'll come soon.
I'm sure it'll come.
It did just come out. I did notice this.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But I've seen the YouTube video for the Model S. That makes sense. It's a hatchback. It's nice and open. I could see doing that. But in the Model 3, it's a little coffin-like when you have like a trunk. Yeah.
It could be nice.
It'd be. I mean,
The thing, if we're spending $150 a night in a hotel, it starts to pay for itself.
If you do a lot of road tripping and you're really committed to sleeping in your car.
yeah.
Yeah. But
It's a cool concept.
But I think, like to your point, I've chosen hotels that have destination charging such that I wake up with a full charge each day,
Sure.
and that saves me a supercharger
Right,
stop.
right.
You would have to
But I mean, you could.
plug in at an RV park
then,
in order
yeah,
to
yeah.
use the Dream Case, and that's $50 a night.
Is it really?
Yep.
Man.
That's the average price, $50
For
a
like
night.
an RV spot.
Yeah, because you have to have what are typically the bigger ones because you need 50 amp plugging. By the way, if you're calling an RV park to reserve a plug, you should be honest. Say you're an electric car user, but the RV park language is 50 amp plug. Don't use any other words. Don't say 1450 plug. Don't say Tesla plug. Don't say anything but 50 amp plug. And if they're like, well, I've got this other space, you're like, no, it has to for sure have a 50 amp plug.
And then, are they all the 1450 plugs, or are there
Yes.
different kind of plugs that you find?
Yeah, like universally RVs
At the
use
1450.
1450
Yeah.
for 50 amp, but there are 30 amp plugs and 15 that are at parks,
Yep.
For different size RVs. They don't need as much power. So if you get pushed back and trying to understand why you need a 50 amp plug for a car, you can be like, it uses the same plug that a big rig RV. You just might kind of reference it. It's one of like the big rollers.
And this is probably becoming pretty common to RV. You've called a couple recently about
I've
this?
used a bunch of them, yeah, and I had to call a couple for this trip.
But this was in 2014, or this new trip you're planning?
I called 2 for this trip.
And they're probably kind of familiar with the situation now.
They're
I would
more
think.
familiar.
Yeah.
I've noticed there's been a change
Yeah.
where I'm not their first electric car call.
Yeah.
Back in 2014,
They're
I
like,
was some
what?
of the.
An electric what?
Why would you bring an electric car here? Which I explained because there's a motel or hotel nearby where I'm going to sleep, but I'm going to charge my car in your RV park.
Or you could get the sweet mattress and sleep
Yeah.
in your car.
And I suppose while we're on this, like the RV, like please expect to pay the full price that an RV would pay overnight. And yes, it's going to be $50. And yes, that's way more than you pay at home. But when you're desperate, that's what you need to do. These are businesses that you are taking a space that they could rent to an RV.
Right.
There are some exceptions. I found the one I'm going to use in Monument Valley, Utah. I'm going to use it during the day. And so they've gone ahead and said, you know what, we'll put you in a spot and it'll be just $10. I was like, sweet.
Perfect.
Like,
Cool.
appreciate
Nice
it.
of them, yeah.
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 That's not the only one that I found, because even back in 2014, I found one more of those.
I bet you're going to see those kind of situations like at those RV parks where they might just in the parking lot put in a couple.
Put a couple
chargers
extra ones,
and
yeah.
say, well,
Yeah.
we'll do you one better. You just park the car in the parking lot.
Oh,
we
yeah.
got spots right
It'd
here.
be perfect.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, I think next up, we got some mailbag! Mailbag!
Perfect. So, yeah, we got
You changed your song.
Sorry.
we got to pre-record the song,
Yeah.
and then the Elon tweet of the week thing we have now. We got to have those pre-recorded little
Consistency.
buttons to press for that. But anyway, it's only episode 5. We're still working out the kinks here. But via our email, if you want to send an email in, it's superchargedpodcast@gmail.com. So we got an email from Craig in Seattle. He said, I am anxiously awaiting my email for my Tesla Model 3, but I'm seriously considering jumping ship to a used Model S with Autopilot 1. I love the size of the Model 3, but like the features and tech in the S. Range is not of concern to me, as I will have a 4x4 ICE car as my backup, and my commute is only 40 minutes round trip. I think I would be happy with Autopilot 1, as I would only expect to use it during rush hour traffic on the highway. I do think I will get my 3 prior to the tax credit being reduced. Estimated delivery for him is June to August, but know that I can get a used S for the same total price and wouldn't have to wait until April for the $7,500 credit. I'd love to hear your thoughts as you have spent time with each model. Thanks for the insights.
That's a good question.
It is a
Craig?
great
Was
question.
is that his name?
Craig from Seattle.
Nice. Good.
You know, it's a tough question. And we actually, since we got this email, we've all kind of discussed this a bit too amongst ourselves. And, you know, I think we probably all have our own opinions on it. And I think a lot of it will depend on, you know, what you intend the car to be. For instance, for me personally, I actually prefer the 3. It's it's much more maneuverable for me, and I mostly do city driving, and I parallel park on the street. Granted, all the cars park themselves, but just trying to find spots that are big enough. For me, the 3 is just a little more handleable and works, I think, a little bit better as a commuter vehicle, but you wouldn't have the free supercharging, which we've become very accustomed to for road trips. And so we have our S to be able to fall back on that for road trips. So I think for, my thoughts on this email for Craig would be, kind of sitting down and thinking about what your primary goal is with the car. I know you said that you have a 4x4 ICE vehicle that you can use as your backup. I'll be honest with you, you probably won't want to anymore.
Yeah,
No,
I think that's a primary concern.
Once you get the car.
Like if you factor that in, you're like, oh, well then Model S might actually be the better choice, but I think that's probably the best statement here is that Craig, you're not going to want that car. You're going to want to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's the thing is, Craig from Seattle. So, I was actually just in Seattle last weekend. That's why I had to miss out on the, was that last weekend? 2 weekends ago?
2. Yeah.
Gosh, I can't even keep track of time anymore.
Last episode.
That's why I had to miss out on the last episode. I was up there for a business trip. And so I actually drove my vehicle up there because Ryan had his car with him. And my car's a Subaru, and there were a few places that I felt really tight trying to park it.
It's not
in parking garages in Seattle, and
wow.
I think even though the Tesla vehicles are able to do a lot of that parking themselves, there were some really tight situations that I don't think it probably could have.
I scratched the glass on the back of the Model S in Seattle in a parking
That's right.
garage.
That's right. Yeah,
Because I'm so used to just staring at the camera, I didn't realize there was like a
bar
thing
up above
the camera. That
yeah,
had the glass.
yeah. So I think that'd be
Yeah.
a big thing to factor in.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do your own value list, right, in any of these situations. And so, Craig, I think that they're both legitimate choices. I mean, I think neither are off the consideration for me. I think just the fact that you have a nice vehicle kind of allows you to do maybe a smaller size battery in a Model S that could be even less. That could be a great idea. And if you really like bigger interiors, you're definitely going to feel that in the Model S. So if that's a high on your value list, Craig, then that kind of pushes Model S.
Right.
If you just heard about Dreamcase and you're like, I wanted to go do that, well then definitely Model S is going to be a better Dreamcase car camping situation. And depending on it, I imagine if you're going for value, you're probably in a rear-wheel drive Model S, which means your frunk is going to be much bigger in the Model S. I mean,
That's true,
there's
yeah.
a bunch of little things that start to add up to be
Yeah.
like, okay, this could really be the reason why you might want to choose it. I think that I will agree with Angela, obviously very biased and currently driving a Model 3, that it would be my choice out of the two is waiting for the Model 3. And I think from a car size aspect, I so agree with that. I love that aspect of it. And then just generally, Tesla's grown up and the car interior design of all kinds of storage nooks and compartments,
Right.
just nice utility of the vehicle
Cup holders.
inside, cup holders in an appropriate place.
Yes.
A little storage nook for your sunglasses that can cover up and kind of hiding things from out of view. This Model 3 clearly has that. Lighted vanity mirrors, which your used Model S won't have. Now, if you bought a new one, yes, it would now have that, but not the old one. And so I just think there's a bunch of little design things that I really like about Model 3.
Right. Yeah. And actually, this is just a side note here that he had mentioned, particularly the Model S with the Autopilot 1, version 1, which I actually prefer. I think it handles a little bit better than the new version.
Right. That'll probably change.
I'm sure it'll change over time.
And
And
I think it's
I
caught up a lot.
I haven't been in a version 2 for a while. I guess last time I was
Yeah,
in your car, but
I drove them back to back because I drove Autopilot 1 Model S while I was having my
that's
roof
right.
glass
That's
replaced in the Model 3. It had an unfortunate crack. It was a quick repair. Thank you, Tesla. But I had a loaner. Thank you, also Tesla, for that. And it was Autopilot 1. And I drove them back to back, and I thought that they were at parity.
Pretty
if not,
comparable.
I preferred my Model 3, obviously,
Okay.
because that's what I'm more used to.
Yeah, I would say for the S is a big car for sure. I'm driving it around wise. I prefer the size of the 3 when I'm driving. I don't find parallel parking to be an issue because I just let it park itself. So
Yeah, but finding spaces that
That
are
is
big
true.
enough for it.
that is definitely
You're not
true.
the one that has to park on the street in front of the house every day.
I would say the thing I would miss the most if I'd left the S for the 3 is the big screen in the middle. I like having 2 things up. I've gotten really comfortable with the splitting it between the map and my rear view camera, and I actually
He,
reference.
he found a new thing on it today, actually.
Yeah, I found a new trick that's probably been there for a year, and I never knew it was there. But I got to where I would reference, use that kind of like a rear view mirror, and use my rear view mirror as well. It's kind of in my scan as I'm going to change lanes or whatever. So I will miss that part of it, and I do have a little setup in the binnacle display with my range, not the range, the energy usage thing, and maybe what I'm listening to, or the other side, the
Navigation.
navigation comes up on there. So, it'd be a little different. Losing that would be, I guess, the tech part you'd be losing. And then, if you did want to haul stuff around, the S is better for that. And I mean, you can fold that seat down. You can put a lot of stuff in there that you probably couldn't fit in the 3 if you had to.
Some of the things we fit in there. Let's see. A recliner.
Right. I would say
Sod for our yard.
we did. We drove with the roof, with the whole hatchback open.
Yeah.
With the recliner coming out. And these like 4 kids, I mean, they were like middle school kids, right?
On their bikes,
skateboards or
yeah.
bikes or something. And they were like running, like waving us down, and like, yeah, we're aware. Like we know Costco is like
Half a mile away.
maybe a mile or 2. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's a half a mile, but yeah. So I would say that. I would say the part I think you'll come around to of he says I got the 4x4 ice car as his backup for trips. I think is what he's saying. I think you'll use whatever Tesla you get for the trips. The 4x4. I'm assuming it's either a pickup or a big Ford Explorer or something of that sort, would probably be a good backup to the S for hauling stuff. If you got to go to Home Depot and get lumber or something, where I'm saying you could
Right.
fit that in the S easier than the 3. So that might almost push it towards the 3 a little bit. I would, in the next section, I think, so I guess maybe I'm kind of pushing towards the 3
Okay, yeah, we
form
should do
too.
final verdict.
Yeah, maybe I am
Final verdict,
pushing
Ryan?
a little towards the 3 form, just because I would say, well, we'll get into it in the next section with the new Model 3 prices, but you can get a very fancy Model 3 for the price of our base Model S now. So,
So
I'm, you can't go wrong. There's not a bad
No, there's not a bad decision
They're both
here.
terrific cars.
yeah.
So there's not a wrong answer. There's
No.
not.
It really is personal preference.
It is.
What you need it for. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was, and actually I have kind of been faced with this question myself because Ryan and I have discussed this is, should I just buy a used S versus waiting? And I hands down want a 3, so
Yeah.
my vote's for the 3.
I'm gonna be Craig. Get a 3.
Yeah.
Brian.
Well, I mean, this is a democracy, so I already lost.
we need more voices. But I think he wants to hear your opinion.
There's not a bad answer.
I know.
There's not a bad answer.
All right.
I don't know. I don't. There's not a wrong
You're
answer.
split like Craig is.
Yeah, I like the idea of the 3. It's pretty much a tie in my book, but I like the 3 just because I feel like, yeah, you are saving the $7,500 with the taxes, but like,
Well, but he said he thinks he can get the 3 before the tax credit.
no, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
He's saying he doesn't mind if he loses that because it's a comparable price the other way, and he has to wait till April. I would say it's $7,500. That I look at as money that's going away unless you get the credit. So it's like a different pool of $7,500 to me, and I would say file quarterly this year, man, Craig, and get that $7,500 back early, maybe. So maybe I'd say 3 for the tax reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. There have been some updates to Model 3. Haven't there been?
There have, and a lot of news coming out last night. I guess some people got the configure opened up for the performance model and maybe the all-wheel drive. I was trying to go on Tesla Motors forum. Elon yesterday on Twitter said, that was going to happen by tomorrow night. And then I guess on the Tesla Motors forum, there's a couple people that have posted they actually have the configure up. I saw the performance model. I didn't just see an all-wheel drive, so maybe it's only doing that invite. But good information coming out here. I guess the dual motor is going to be $5,000 extra. I guess a long time ago, it was stated by Elon that it was actually going to be cheaper than the Model S add-on was.
Yeah.
That was $5,000
That's-
back
but
when it was an option. So
Elon math
right.
ended up being equal.
Maybe
Yes.
in Elon math though, because they haven't offered just a rear-wheel drive now in 2 years, almost year and a half,
Yeah,
2 years.
so in his
So
mind-
maybe in his mind that would be $6,000 or $7,000 now
Yeah.
if it was offered as an
you're
option.
factoring in inflation.
Yeah,
I'm factoring
yeah.
inflation.
Okay.
Right.
yeah.
So maybe I have to
Sounds
factor
like
in
you're really
inflation.
doing Elon math now.
Yeah. So 5,000 extra for that. So now if you're looking, I guess, just at a base Model 3 with four-wheel drive and autopilot, because you got to add autopilot. That's just not even a choice. That's also 5,000. It's now $45,000 car right there, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I nerd out? I
Yep.
did read that tweet from him, and he confirmed that the back is like back motor is like a switched reluctance permanent magnet motor, which is very interesting. Kind of funny that again it doesn't use.
Do you want to go into this? Because
namesake.
I read this and was going to mention it, but I would have just read it verbatim and not known anything about it.
Well,
so.
I'll just say that it's a more efficient motor than the induction motor, the AC induction motor, which the Model S and X use. But here's the interesting thing: the front axle on the 3 is going to use an AC induction motor, which is the kind of classic Nikola Tesla motor design.
Okay.
So I think there might be some performance advantages. I understand. I think the induction motor works better at lower speeds, and the efficiency's sake, the other motor works better at high speeds. So I imagine maybe they were like, well, what if we put one of each on board? We'll get the best of both worlds. So I was like, oh, that's smart.
And this is different than what's on the S and the X right now. Correct?
S and X dual motor used the AC induction motor on front and rear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a question from Ryan McCaffrey, who hosts another great Tesla podcast.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning.
Ride the Lightning. He does
Yeah.
a great podcast, and I'm so glad he asked that because we got an answer.
Yeah, you did. It was detailed. Usually it's more vague. So that option came out. We didn't get the full breakdown here, but then Elon had another tweet on the performance and cost of all options, wheel paint, etc., included apart from autopilot. I don't know why he didn't include autopilot. Is $78,000.
Ouch.
Right there.
Yeah.
So the base Model 3, I don't know. It's probably pretty close to what we got. Well, you can actually get a Model S, for cheaper than that. You can get a Model S base for cheaper than that still, I believe, right?
I haven't checked the
I'd
price
have to check it
recently.
recently. But ours total price, I think, came in at like 81.
Something like that. 81,
And that was
82.
with
paint and autopilot.
paint, autopilot, and the premium.
Oh, and the premium interior and the
sunroof.
Sunroof.
So there's 10,000 in options there, maybe a little more than that, 12,000 in options, I don't know, something like that. So for the same price, we could go get this performance model, the P3D, I guess you'd call it. I don't know if there has an official name yet. I think it's just Model 3 Performance, I think is what it's actually called. So that's 78,000. Then if you add autopilot, you're at 83,000 for 5. I don't think, is anyone actually paying that $3,000 right now for full
self-driving.
self-driving?
I found a few people on forums that did, but
Yeah.
you know,
I
don't think that was a good decision.
I would say,
Yeah.
let me give it my personal, I'm going to call this stock advice for sure, for this reason. If you want to buy that full self-driving, put $3,000 into Tesla stock, because if they activate full self-driving, your $3,000 will be worth more than $4,000. They say they're going to charge $4,000 after it's online to be activated. I will guarantee you, if they activate it, that stock would go up that much. Just do it. That would be my advice.
The answer to current price,
Right.
new Model S with no additional features, 74,500.
Okay. So, yeah. So you can actually get a Model S cheaper than the performance Model
Yeah.
3. I'll say, too, if Tesla goes bankrupt before they get self-driving, well, you lost the $3,000 you were going to pay them for the self-driving anyway, so you might as well put it in the stock and hope it does well.
Either
right?
way, you're going to lose your $3,000.
Either way, you're going to lose that $3,000. So you might as well put it in there. That's a better use of your $3,000, I would think. So that's coming in about $83,000 for everything. Also, white interior, going to become available only for the performance models initially. Interesting. And that they'll be able to do about 1,000 of those a week. I don't know if there's a time frame on that, but about 1,000 of those a week. And so Elon Time will push, 2-3 months out when they actually start delivering these. The time frame for delivery on the one configure I saw, the guy had it open, said 12 to 18 weeks when he went to order the performance model. And then performance-wise, still the 310 miles range, 3.5 seconds, 0 to 60, which is 5.1, I believe, is what the...
Advertised rear-wheel drive is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's done better in some tests,
Yeah.
supposedly, but...
Yeah.
Yes, still slower than like a P100D for sure. That's coming in at like 2.3.
Yeah,
or...
that makes sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to go to a level of engineering that the Model 3 is going to beat their...
They don't want to completely
Halo
cannibalize
car.
Model S sales, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. Good calls.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff coming out there. Those are going to be available. And then, I think they're really going to try to... I think you're not going to see the smaller battery probably... When is that going to happen? They're going to try to put a couple big quarters together with all these real premium cars now.
Yeah, I think
I don't know how many...
maybe January 2019.
Do you think it's that late? Yeah, I don't know.
I'm being a pessimist, I guess, right on
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But I think your point exactly. They need some higher dollar because if they want
I
to,
think they want to put a couple really good-looking quarters together.
yeah, some profitable quarters
Yeah.
without doing a cash raise. I think they're going to need to do
I don't know
that.
the mindset. How many people do you think are going to order the $78,000 version or $83,000 version? I think most people are going to add that autopilot, make it an $83,000 version. How much of... It's probably a decent market for it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a car performance-wise from Tesla. You had to go up to P100D, Even the base Model S, it's 5 seconds, 0 to 60. It's about the same as the base Model 3, just because of the weight factor, I think it's a big issue there. So they're coming in. There could be a big market. They could sell a lot of those, and that would really help the numbers. I'm sure they're high-margin vehicles.
Well, but just think about how many slightly higher margin all-wheel drive long-range Model 3s as well. Well, I think a lot of people have been waiting for
I think...
that.
So now you're
The
looking
all-wheel
at
drive long range without the performance.
Without the performance.
a car somewhere in the 60s, probably, is depending on the options you choose there.
Didn't you just
yeah.
say 45?
That was a small battery option. I was saying
Yeah.
there.
Oh.
So with the big battery, you're already at 54.
Oh, gotcha.
Then if you go premium interior, you're at 59. If you
Gotcha.
add paint, you're at 60. What am I missing there?
I think you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the.
So you're in the
60.
60s.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So you're already in the 60s there on a currently available Model 3 with all-wheel drive. Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. I think that's all we have for you guys this episode. Episode 5 in the books. Anything you guys want to add before we go?
No. I'm sure we're going to revisit the road tripping just by nature of I'm going on one
Yeah.
in June. So well, I'm sure we'll come up with some other topics. 'Cause I think there's we can revisit the whole thing. Like, what do you do during a supercharger stop? We research some things.
Yeah.
So I think we should come back to that.
For sure.
All summer long.
I think I do have an ad I want to add in before we go.
Okay.
I have an in-car app that I've used for several years, once in a while, to get Tesla stuff, or to get Waze stuff up in the car. It was called Tesla Waze. And I don't know where you heard it. You read it somewhere, I guess.
My Tesla Divas Facebook group.
Yeah, that it wasn't going to work anymore. We actually got stuck in traffic for 30 minutes or so behind a crash coming home this morning. So we tried to bring that up. We were in bad cell phone service. I couldn't get Waze to work on my phone, but the car seemed to have cell service. And they just have a funny rip. I kind of just want to read what they have when it comes up. It still works right now for another week. It says, "This is the end. As you may or may not know, Google has decided to start charging exorbitant prices for access to their mapping service, and it is no longer feasible to continue running the website. Unfortunately, Google also decided to additionally extort developers that took a dependency on their platforms by giving them only 30 days notice of this change." I'm going to say ... read some more. "Once again, thanks a lot, Scroogle." That's what it says. So
They're funny.
Unfortunately, that goes away. Now you're going to actually have to open your Waze app and bring that up. It was handy to have. I'd said before, again, I wished Waze was in an option on the Tesla. I wish they did a little third-party stuff, integrated it into their system. So if you're listening into what Tesla do, a little integration, just get Waze on there anyway, But I think that's all we got.
All right,
We'll
cool.
See you next time.
All right, thanks for listening.
See ya.
Engine on hum, and I'm driving an electric, helping out the planet, plus I'm feeling real sporty. New type of swag, looking cool when I'm 40.
Supercharged Podcast is presented by David Zygmunt, Ryan Vinton, Cameron Larson, and Angela Vinton. Portions of Dippin' in My Tesla are courtesy of Jay Brave. Copyright 2010. Lufam Pro Entertainment. Visit us on Facebook by searching Supercharged Podcast, on Twitter @SuperchargedPod, and Instagram @SuperchargedPodcast. Have a question or comment you'd like to hear on the show? Call our hotline, +1 657 845 1673.